if I was to ask you, what is some of the advice? Because there are so many amazing leaders across the world, um, but each one of us learns from the other, right? So,
Mhm.
if I was to ask you, what is one piece of advice that you'd give other leaders in your situation? What would that be?
Maybe it's a recap of what we've just talked about. The first one is I don't know that I was often encouraged to think creatively, but thinking with ingenuity is finding solutions to problems that I have defined and set my mind against solving in ways that should exist but don't. Two, doing it together, learning as you go. And then maybe three, remembering that we're all evolving along the way.
Remember that you're in a one-up position when you're in a leadership position with people. You need to maintain integrity, meaning you need to maintain a focus on doing what's best for as many people as possible. Know that there are problems which have solutions. There are dilemmas that have paths that aren't perfect. And so when you make those kinds of decisions, there are going to be people who celebrate and move on, and there are going to be people who didn't feel they benefited, who you're going to have to spend more time with. You can't ignore them and assume tough luck for them. They didn't get what they wanted. You need to circle back to them and show commitment to them, because in this moment, you may not have given them what they needed, but there'll be other moments. And you're in a position to influence them and impact them in the future. They need to know you care about them. They need to know that you do consider them and want to support them in the future. So keeping that integrity, keeping yourself committed to everybody, not creating lines of demarcation between those you care, those who agree with you and those who don't. It's not going to be effective for you. You'll never please everybody all the time, and people who you made happy one time will disagree with you the next time.
Yeah, and if you have that integrity, then you will be able to defend your stance for why you did what you did, even though some may not quite come along with you. I completely understand.
I believe there are a few types of leaders, but if you want to be a leader that truly drives your company forward, you have to be extremely present and you have to be engaged not only on the business, but on the personal level with at least your direct reports. You have to have empathy, but you have to be stern. And you have to demand respect, but also give it in a way that people feel that they can add value back. You do not have all the answers. You must listen to what your employees, your team is saying, and then find a solve if you do not take their advice that works for all parties to keep everyone engaged and everyone motivated. I see leaders all the time that say, well, Lisa, help me out. You know, I achieved this level. I feel like my work's increased. Yes, your work will increase until you have created the team around you that you absolutely and desperately need. But I don't believe that the leader should feel like rising in the ranks will eliminate workload. Sometimes we have to be psychiatrists, and sometimes we have to be just up here to listen. And I think that oftentimes the mentees that I support are challenged with the fact that they still have to put in a little effort, and maybe sometimes it's more effort than they believed would occur when they were promoted or found themselves in that role.
You know, Lisa, thank you for being the leader you are. Thank you for being there for others as part of Member of Chief. Thank you for thinking about your industry in such an insightful way and leading from the front. And so thank you again.
I try to learn a lot, Shakir, because I'm constantly trying to figure out how to overcome my own frailties and gaps. The things that I come across and I sort of think on, I wish somebody would have told, I wish somebody would have mentioned that to me earlier or would have educated me on this. Universities, companies put a lot of premium on competence. And I think what we miss is that leadership is competence and character.
Mm.
And yes, character is a base, as in you need it at all times, but character gets increasingly more important as you rise up in position where you're able to influence a lot of other stakeholders and businesses, i.e. leadership. Imagine, like I visualize myself as a young brand manager in Malaysia. Yes, I needed to have good values, uncompromisable, would always be there. But I wasn't impacting humanity as much as I am in my role now. There's a lot of people who look up to me, look at me, look for me when they're looking for things. And they're not looking only for a competent leader. They're looking for someone who's going to take care of them, who's going to help them grow, who's going to nourish them, who's not going to do, hopefully, negative things. And there's a lot of negativity in the world. So I have a test when I'm hiring people. I have two tests when I hire people after all the interviews. The first one is a DNA test, and the second one is a daughter test. So the 2 Ds. The DNA test is that, am I hiring someone who's better than me? Because if I'm doing that, I am improving the gene pool of the company. And hopefully at some point in time, I would actually, if I was to report to that person, I would be very proud. I hired that person, and I have no shame that I'm reporting to that person. A lot of people pass that because I have a low bar on me. I don't think, finding a better DNA is not a problem. The second one, Saki, I have to tell you, 50% of the people fail. 50%. The daughter test says, would I let my daughter report to that person? Not my son, but my daughter. And that is a question of values. And I look at it and say, well, if I'm not going to let my daughter report to that person, there's no way that I'm going to let any of my team members report to that individual. And I use that test constantly in our current team as well. If we have a talent issue, the first test is this: is it competence or is it character? Competence, everyone has a gap, a lot of forgiveness. Character, no forgiveness. So for me, I think the advice on leadership is, when I look at great leaders, one thing consistent is, I think, those who excel and literally break that cloud is character and not as much as competence.
Yeah, I think the way I hear you articulate that, competence is required but not sufficient.
Yeah.
Character is what makes you break through. And the other thing, I think what you said was, early on in a career, one is required to show character by living it. Once you get rise up the ranks, then it's not just showing character, but other people are aspiring to the character of that individual. So it's aspirational as well. So lovely. That's very cool.